Hello everyone and welcome back to my true crime channel. Today I want to discuss more red flags that have been flying for Candus since she gave part 2 of her interview to Chris from the interview room. Something I noticed on the first time that I watched the part 2 of Candus's interview with Chris from the interview room, who has a YouTube channel called The Interview Room, was that there was a television as you go down into the basement to Summer's bedroom, and apparently Don and Candus's bedroom is also down there, but as you went through to what looked like Summer's bedroom, before you got in there, there was a television that was turned on, and it had, well, what shall we say, slightly dodgy images on it. So the first time I watched it, I did find myself thinking, oh my God, is that a woman on their television that's taking their top off? Nowadays, whenever I see music videos, I think, I'm really old now, I think, oh my God, really raunchy. Like, wow, this didn't happen when I was a teenager. Now, I know that when I was a teenager, you had the likes of Christina Aguilera and Britney Spears, and Christina Aguilera did have one quite, well, maybe more than one quite raunchy video, but the videos of today are ridiculous in my opinion. They're mentioning drugs and guns, and there's a lot of raunchiness going on, you know, almost full on nudity. And even though I must sound like a real prude, I do think it's a bit wrong. I don't think it's good for children to be watching things like that. And I don't see why, if it's a music video, we need to have so much gangster stuff going on and so much nudity and so many drug references. It's just obscene and I don't like it. Now, I'm not judging people that enjoy watching these videos. I love music. I've loved music all my life, but some of the music videos now are really rather bizarre, pretty X-rated in my opinion. If it was a rude video, there's nothing wrong with that. They're adults. If Candus was there on her own and wanted to watch a rude video, that's fine. Apparently Don was at work, but if she was watching a rude video and Chris turned up, you would have thought she would have turned it off, wouldn't you? So I don't know. There's a lot of speculation that was Don hiding in that shed, because I'm sure you've all watched the same interview I did. Candus at first seemed bit cagey. She didn't want to let Chris look in the shed, but then the more he pushed her on it, she eventually said, no, you're not looking in there. It's Don's shed. He keeps his tools in there. We don't even let the boys in there. It's a mess. What I found weird about that was, no offence, their house was generally, I'm not going to say a mess, but a bit cluttered, not exactly tidy. So why would she be embarrassed, considering what we saw in the house, to let someone look in that shed? Now, the only thing I can think, separate to something dodgy, is that she's got personal things in there that are no one's business, that she doesn't want anyone to see, or that Don has personal things in there that are no one's business that he doesn't want anyone to see. If that's true, that's fine. People are allowed to have private things and private lives, so perhaps there are things in there, nothing too suspicious to do with Summer, but that no one wants Chris to see. And if that's the case, then that's fine. But obviously, if it's the case that there's something more sinister in that shed, then it's extremely dodgy, and it means more red flags for Candus and Don. The fact that the shed door was open makes me wonder, when had somebody last been in there? Now, maybe Don was at work, maybe he wasn't at work. We weren't there, we don't know, but the fact that the telly was on downstairs led me to believe that someone had been downstairs before Chris arrives on the property to do the interview with Candus. And could it be that Don and Candus were both there watching something on the telly? Or if Don was at work, was it that Candus was watching something on the telly?
Now, since filming this video, I've watched a really interesting video that Chris did with another true crime channel, an interview that he gave. And in it, he says something that he's never said on his own channel, which I found extremely interesting, that I wasn't aware of. When he was doing the interview with Candus down at the waterhole where Summer spent the last day before she went missing, or part of her last day, he then says, could he go and look at the house? And she says yes. Now, I wasn't aware whether it was filmed the same day, but what it would appear is that they drive back towards Candus and Don's home, and en route, from what Chris says, Candus stopped at an establishment to buy food. He said that she stopped to buy pizzas. Now, obviously, when we first watched this interview with Candus at the waterhole, we didn't know, we weren't told how soon they film at the house. You could have assumed it was straight away, but it was certainly something Chris didn't mention, so I wasn't sure whether it was filmed the same day. I almost got the impression that Candus was already there when he arrived, but that doesn't appear to be the case. So as I said, once they're finished doing their interview at the waterhole, it's agreed they'll go back to the house. So they leave the waterhole, but they don't go straight back to the house, which I found extremely interesting. What Chris has now alluded is, before they get back to Candus and Don's home, Candus stops en route and stops at a pizza place or somewhere that sells food, at least pizzas. Apparently she's gone in the establishment that sells food for about 20 minutes. She comes back out with pizzas, puts the pizzas into her car or her vehicle, and then she goes back into the food place. No explanation as to why. She's gone another 10 minutes. When she reappears the second time, goes back to her car, she hasn't got any pizzas to put into the car like she did the first time round. She comes back empty-handed. Now, what Chris alluded is that he believes that during the time Candus is in the food place, the pizza place, whatever it is, she calls Dom. He thinks that she did that because he was following her back to the home. He would have noticed her on the phone, and obviously pretty certain in America you have laws like we do here in England that you shouldn't be on the phone whilst you're driving. So what I believe happened there, and I do agree with Chris, is Candus stopped at the food place to get pizzas as a ruse. Maybe she was hungry, maybe she wasn't, but it was definitely so she could stop and call Don to warn him that her and Chris were on their way to the family home. Now, another small thing to note here is that Chris said, plural, that Candus buys pizzas. It wasn't one pizza. Now, I don't know the size of the pizzas, but I find it weird that she was buying more than one pizza when apparently Don was at work, or definitely wasn't at home. The boys weren't there, as sadly they had already been taken into care at this point. So why the need to buy more than one pizza? Doesn't add up. Pretty sure she went in there to phone Don. So I know that those of you that are familiar with my channel will know that I've found Don's shed, and I think there is more than one shed, but at least one of his sheds is dodgy and has raised red flags for me ever since it was first mentioned. So what I find even more interesting now is not just was it interesting that there was spring break on the television, according to Chris from the interview room, did look like it might have been a rude film or a bit of a risque, raunchy music video. That was what I thought at first when I saw that, but obviously I did learn a little while back that that was Spring Break that's on the telly. And obviously, if adults want to watch Spring Break and there's a bit of nudity, it's really not the end of the world. But what I found odd was that the television was on in the basement, but Candus had been out with Chris at the waterhole, so why was the television on? And now we know that Chris followed her back to the house. She didn't have time to run in and put the telly on. It would appear someone was already watching the telly. And what I'm wondering, and I wondered at the time, and I'm wondering even more now I know what Chris has said about her stopping on the way home and maybe ringing Don, is was it that Don was in the house watching the Spring Break on the telly? Candus stops on the way home at the pizza place to ring Don to tell him they're on their way. Don flees the house, obviously runs off to the shed, hides in the shed so that Chris can't see him. He obviously doesn't want to face Chris, which I find a bit sus. If your daughter's missing, why on earth would you not want to meet an ex-homicide detective who has experience in cold cases and missing people cases? Why would you not want them to help you? Why would you need to feel the need to hide in your shed? Perhaps because you have guilty knowledge of what happened to your daughter. Again, guys, these are always just my opinions. I know you're not always going to agree with me. A lot of people, when I've commented on the shed in previous recent videos that I've done, a lot of them have been men, and they've said that, you know, a man's shed is private, it's sacred, it might be where he keeps expensive tools, doesn't want the world to see because someone could potentially burgle them. Well, I doubt that. If your daughter's missing, your priority would be your daughter. You really wouldn't give a shit if your power tools were stolen, in my opinion. I'm not saying that, you know, certain men's sheds aren't private or they're man cave and they don't want women or anyone going in there. But if you had a missing child, you would have let Chris from the interview room look in that shed if you didn't have anything to hide. And if you didn't really want it appearing on telly because it was a mess, as Candus said, he could have filmed it. Not filmed it. He could have gone into it and not filmed, is what I mean. And therefore, it wouldn't have had to be on the telly. But what's odd, and I thought was odd at the time, is if it was a mess and she didn't want him to film in there, as I've said, the house wasn't exactly spotless, was it? It wasn't exactly super tidy. We'll leave it at that. So why would it matter if someone looks in a messy shed when your house is messy? That's never added up to me. The shed has always raised red flags. I don't believe it's just that there are some expensive power tools in there. I'm not so sure that Summer was hidden in there, although she could have been. I don't believe she was hidden in there when Chris arrived. I certainly think what is much, much, much more likely is that Don was hiding in that shed. It just makes sense because there's quite a few things I noticed. The shed door was open. It wasn't open. Now, it could have blown open in the wind, but Part way through the video with Chris, the shed is open, the shed is not. When he asks Candus about it, she's very cagey, and at first she doesn't say no, he can't look in there. She sort of half says no-ish, and then when Chris pushes her on it, she definitely says no, that, you know, she doesn't even let her own boys go in there, so she's not going to let Chris look in there. It's Don's space, and that it's a mess, was what she said. So the mess thing never added up, and just because she doesn't let young children, her boys, look in there, doesn't mean a grown man can't look in there. And she also said, from my recollection, that he could hurt himself in there, Chris. Well, bear in mind, Chris is a fully grown adult. You know, he's not a young child. I'm pretty sure he could go in there without hurting himself. So all of the excuses she gave back in that interview with Chris were red flags to me. I didn't understand why you wouldn't let someone look in there. I appreciate it's already been looked in by the police, but on that particular day, at that particular time, let's all be honest here really with ourselves. Why did Candus not want him to look in there? If you've got a missing child and you were desperate and you want your child home, and I'm really putting an emphasis in my tone of voice when I say this, you would look high and low over and over until you found your child. You would not refuse to let someone that's trying to help you find your child not look in a shed. It makes no sense. It's never added up to me, and it's always raised huge red flags for Candus and Don for the sheer fact that Candus would not let Chris look in there, whether on film or off film. She wouldn't let him look in there. So from that alone, we all knew from the beginning of this really that that shed was well sus. So something to note about Don is he has previous for hiding out when the shit's about to hit the fan and the police are on his tail. So previously he was in trouble for the police and he hid in a cupboard in order not to be found. Pretty sure he was busted, so that didn't work very well for him, but bless him, he tried his best to hide. And then on another occasion, I believe, when abuse had been going on in his family home, as in his dad and his stepmom's family home, I think we all know what abuse I'm talking about, he flees the house and tries to hide outside the house somewhere. I'm not fully certain where, but he definitely hides somewhere, and he's found by his dad. So often when Don's in trouble, or he wants to avoid confrontation, he hides in places, whether that be a cupboard or some other place. But knowing he's got a record of, you know, a previous record of more than once hiding out when he's in trouble, really does give a lot more credence to the fact that Don was potentially hiding in his shed.
Considering the circumstances of why Candus gave this interview and that there's a missing 5-year-old girl, in my opinion, it would be better not to have filth on your TV. Have a television so close to a child's room that's gone missing, that has that sort of content on it, isn't great to see. It's not really a problem because there are no children in the house, but it does lead you to believe what sort of things do the parents watch on the TV, and you just hope that the children don't ever witness these things that maybe they enjoy watching. So as always, guys, please keep sharing your thoughts with me on Summer's case. It's such a strange case. It's so mysterious. It's so confusing. There's new news on this case almost every day. The parents are, you know, every couple of days giving an interview, so it's hard to keep up with all of their interviews because there's one on almost a daily basis. Obviously, I have enjoyed watching everything that Chris from the interview room has done. He's doing a fantastic job in trying to help find Summer Wells. Obviously, I think his intentions are good. I don't think, you know, that he's trying to do this for any, you know, strange reasons. I think he genuinely wants to find Summer. He works for a cold case sort of federation, so he's obviously very much into cold cases, finding missing people. So I'm sure his intentions are good. I've just been very surprised that the parents have chosen to speak to him, especially considering his background as an ex-detective, especially within homicide. But perhaps they're innocent and perhaps I'm wrong. As I've said before, guys, I don't think they took their daughter, you know, somewhere and did something sinister on purpose. I really don't believe that. I've never believed that. I believe that there was an accident, potentially covered up by Candus when Don was at work, or perhaps Don wasn't at work at all and there's been an accident that was witnessed by both parents that was covered up. I don't know. Obviously, I wasn't there. These are just my speculations, and like I said, I assess people from how they speak, the language that they choose to use, the body language that they display. That's how I make my judgments and my speculations. And as always, I'm just human and I could be wrong. Well, anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much to all my new subscribers. I really appreciate you. Thank you to everyone that's been commenting on this case and sharing your thoughts with everybody else. Thank you for keeping it respectful in the comments. I know not everybody does. If you are rude or you swear or you say anything too over the top about Candus and Don, YouTube will just remove it. YouTube doesn't put up with abusive comments. So if anyone makes a personal attack on Candus and Don, or, you know, starts having a go at other people in the comments to an abusive level, YouTube does monitor these comments and they're automatically removed if YouTube deems them as offensive. So try your best if you can. I know it's hard sometimes when you're passionate about something, but try your best to keep it clean in the comment section. Try your best to understand that you're not going to all agree with each other, just like you're not going to all agree with me. But it's nice that we can discuss different thoughts with each other, different theories. We're not all going to have the same thoughts, but that's what makes the world go round, you know, having different opinions, you know, sharing them with each other, having conversations, adult conversations where we don't all have an argument with each other. There is nothing wrong with that, and if anything, it could help this case. Well, anyway, guys, I hope you're all well. I hope you're all staying safe. I hope all your families are well. I hope you're having a great day. Thank you so much for watching again, and as always, I'll be back very soon with another true crime video. Bye for now.